Good morning and welcome to Trading with Larry. It's Larry Benedict, joined by Clint Brewer. I think Eric got caught in a snowstorm in New York, so I think he's digging out. But I'm glad you can join me today. A lot to talk about. A lot going on across the board in a lot of different things, and it's. I heard. Waller this morning had some comments that were really strange. On top of he may cut, he may raise, he doesn't know what he wants to do. He doesn't know if the data is correct from the jobs number. He thinks tariffs are going to be a positive for spending. I don't know. I think he could be more lost than me, which is he's a Fed governor. I'm just a guy sitting in Boca, but I think the Fed is completely. I don't even know if the word is lost. It's kind of worse than lost. I mean, you can't tell like what's going on. You may cut or you may raise or go to neutral. Like you don't know what you're gonna do. Um, it's pretty scary, but that's just one cog in the wheel. We've had a big up trade in metals over the last couple of days. I thought that thing was dead because there was no volume. They brought the memers back to life, and now we're almost at a level where they can buy them. So that's interesting. And then oil, which I really liked yesterday, which I wanted to really look at to the long side, um, has rallied about $1 and is near the highs of the move. So going to wait for that to pull back a little, but I think there's a lot to talk about. We have the Iranian, I guess, fake meeting on Thursday where they're still wanting to enrich uranium, etc. And I don't think we're going to go for it. So I think that meeting is going to go poorly. You have State of the Union, which is going to be very interesting as well, when you have the justices sitting in the first row that basically shot down his thing. And, it's funny. There's like a deal with Paramount and Netflix bidding for Discovery, and like Trump is in the middle of the deal. Like he one day he says it's okay, then he says it's not. So we have a lot of cross currents. Market had a decent sized rally on Friday, gave back a little this morning, and here we sit. So I'm going to throw it to you. You can get us started and take us down whatever road you think may be interesting today for the people that are watching.
Yeah, the one other event I would throw out for the week too is Nvidia earnings. So we got Nvidia earnings after the
Oh
close
yeah, Wednesday night.
on Wednesday. Yeah, so yeah, I would go back to something that you started with, which is the Fed. There's a lot of the headlines you're going to read about today are around what the Supreme Court ruled with tariffs being unconstitutional. Now the EU trade deals in jeopardy, and Trump's already threatening. Like the last number I saw was another 15% global tariff, which how does he do that? I don't know. But you're going to see all that. Iran's still in the headlines, but I think the most important thing that happened last week is as it's going to impact the market, it revolves around the Fed. And that's because, you had Waller's comments this morning. But what was interesting is that last week we had the minutes from the most recent Fed meeting from back in January. And like it already had a hawkish tone to it because back, they kept rates on hold, but they called it a hawkish pause because at the same time they upgraded their assessment of the economy. They weren't as concerned about the labor market. So, some of those concerns went away. But then in the minutes last week, you had several participants talking about rate hikes. So all of a sudden, like they're shifting their attention to what's happening with inflation, and now they're starting to talk about hikes. So I mean, all the pressures on the new Fed governor or chairman coming in, sometime in May or later, depending on what's happening with Powell and some of the stuff that was happening with that DOJ subpoena. I don't know where that stands, but either way, you got a guy coming in who's under intense pressure to cut rates. But I mean, I don't know if he's going to be able to build a consensus with the committee to get there, because again, you're seeing this big shift. And why is that the biggest risk for the stock market? I mean, a big part of it is because of how that impacts financial conditions overall. and that can be have a big impact on valuations. And for a market where the top 10 stocks in the S&P 500 make up 41% of the index, they're trading at a forward PE of 27 versus their historical average closer to 20. So that outlook for the Fed, the outlook for rates is it's a big risk for the biggest names, and the biggest names make up a big portion of the index.
Yeah, but what I'm seeing is sector rotation inside of the biggest names. So it's what I do every day. I have a friend that I talk to a lot and some other guys. Um, and all we do in the morning is we go, oh, they're not buying Apple today, so they'll buy Nvidia or they'll buy Tesla. And it's just like a computer madness of a rigged market that they don't want to really go anywhere. This is, believe it or not, this is the correction. I mean, I'm hoping for more, but this is the correction of a 4-month consolidation where the S&P has not been down 2%, really, from the highs, or 3 at the most. And we're just like sitting here. And I just don't get it. And I'm sure if we look today, 5 or 3 or 2 of the Mag 7 stocks are up, and 4 are down, and 2 are unchanged. And then they're going to flippity flop. And then when they need Apple, when the NASDAQ is going down to hold it up, as soon as the NASDAQ rallies, they get out of Apple and they buy Nvidia. And I mean, this is Clint. This is every day. I mean, it's been
Well,
every day. And
big,
Friday's move in equities, which we didn't get caught on, but it shocked me because it was really an extensive move for what really came out. Like it it was interesting. Polymarket had it wrong. Okay, they only had like a 9% chance that the ruling was coming on Friday. So if you played Polymarket, you had a great day on that. Then the ruling came out and the market went straight up, then straight down, then back straight up, and then straight down. And, we ended on the highs. And I'm trying to figure out, you know, why, like what was so positive on it, you know? So.
yeah, I don't. Yeah, there's still a lot that's in limbo with everything around it. I mean, the word I keep seeing on anything tariff related right now is just uncertainty, because it's throwing some of these trade deals into jeopardy. But then at the same time, they're speculating that there's ways that the administration can get around it and figure out other avenues, other tools, other levers to put these into place. And then there's also the uncertainty around what happens what happens with all the money you've collected via tariffs so far, and how does that have to be returned? Like what's going on there? But now I want to go back actually to something you mentioned about kind of the rotation of the Mag 7, and it's actually, I think it's even bigger than the Mag 7. I saw a really interesting chart over the weekend that said 66% of the companies in the S&P 500 are outperforming the index year to date. So yeah, you look at the S&P and it looks like it's going absolutely nowhere for several months now, and it's traded in about a 4% range over the last since late October really. But you've got over 2/3 of the members outperforming the index so far this year. And I think it's a great point, because you actually have a presentation out there. I'm not sure if we're able to put a link to it in the on the channel, but there's a Project 2026 presentation you have out there that goes into this. We have a report as part of all this on how to kind of play this rotation. We have our favorite ticker for doing so. But that is one. That the number of S&P members outperforming so far this year is the most in history. It's you tend to see that during times like market dislocations. You see that number spike during periods like 2008 or during the internet bubble. So it's interesting that we're seeing that kind of rotation here right now. Will that continue this year? I don't know, but yeah, I mean it's interesting how the Mag 7, they're waiting on the S&P. It's going nowhere, but under the hood, you've got certain sectors have been just absolutely on a tear, just ripping higher.
Yeah, well, they're able to do that because it's part of what we discussed a minute ago. They're taking down some Mag 7s so they can buy, the broken Dow stocks that have been broken for a while, old line industrials, some, basically pharmaceuticals, whatever. And that's what's making up and keeping the market neutral because the bottom line is those weightings are so high. So yeah, you're seeing outperformance in a lot of different places, and you know it's uh, it's pretty interesting. One thing I'd like to say is I've been long a little bit of Bitcoin. Okay, I bought a little bit more,
I
and
was going to ask you about Bitcoin this morning. Yeah.
I'm going to get a little bit more aggressive. It was funny. I saw a headline last night. It made me laugh. It was like off the CNBC app. And, Trump raised the tariffs over the weekend, basically Friday into the weekend. And Bitcoin was up all weekend. Okay. And then my headline said Bitcoin is going down because of the Trump tariffs. And I'm laughing to myself because it's just like, it's just like a placeholder thing when the market goes up or down. They'll just say if we're down today, it's tariffs. If we're up today, I don't know. They have to come up with something else. But I'm kind of warming up to that trade a little bit. It's down about 2% today. It was down about 5 overnight. And I think today maybe if it can close positive, which isn't too far for Bitcoin, 2%, it could change the dynamic and it could be a washout again, second down test down to the level. But I mean, look at the end of that chart. It's just sitting for weeks and weeks and weeks, right? I mean, so I don't
Yeah.
know. I don't.
This chart, it goes back 2 years, and this is early February where we initially had that intraday test of the 60,000 level, and yeah, I mean we've struggled to get much liftoff. Looks like we're going to come back to test it again, but that is such an important level when you come back and look at all the trading that took place around there. This was back before the election in 2024. So yeah, I mean we're coming right back down to that level. I think I noted in one of the your e-letters, Trading with Larry, uh, back during this time. I mean this is like the second most oversold level Bitcoin's ever been in history. Um, so when you get those oversold conditions, you could see on the chart how stretched below the 50-day moving average we were coming in at that price support level. Yeah, I think that's that 60,000 level. That's a strong area to hold.
It's definitely interesting. I mean, I don't see us getting back down there. I mean, on this move potentially, but here's what I would say: like that 60,000 level was not real. So that hit 60,000 and change exactly when silver hit $64 and now silver is like $86. I mean it's bounced like 40% and Bitcoin's actually gone nowhere. I guess they're not in the same risk on risk off. I don't even know what Bitcoin is because like on Friday Bitcoin was down and the market was up. Today Bitcoin's down, the market's down.
You know what Bitcoin is? I don't have the chart on this, but what Bitcoin is extremely highly correlated to software stocks. If you look at all these software as a service, pull up a ticker of IGV, like Bitcoin over the last couple of years has traded almost in lockstep with these software names. Like it's trading like it's just another software name. And the software names were weak on Friday. Bitcoin was weak on Friday.
Oh, look what came across my tape. OpenAI enters more consulting deals with their enterprise push. I mean, this could take down the whole market. I'm just telling you. I mean, it is unbelievable. He entered a deal with Boston Consulting, McKinsey Group, this, that. I mean, it's unbelievable. Like, why are these people signing on? That's the question I have for you. Why are they signing on when they? Why don't they just not do a deal, see what this clown can do, and then just go along with the guy? But I think what he does is he goes out, he goes, listen, let's do a deal. We'll pay you money. We're going to pay you money in the future. Just sign this deal, and everyone's signing because they don't have to make real commitments. But I just think it puts the market in such jeopardy. Just my opinion. and markets are markets are quiet today. It's funny. I remember when I was a floor trader and it didn't snow a lot, but anytime there was a blizzard, the market rallied. I don't know why. There was no one around and the market rallied. So it wouldn't shock me today if the market rallied,
What
although we came off a very strong day on Friday, overly strong uh, for
What do
not
you
a
think
lot
about
of
the
reason.
What do you think about that move in futures overnight? I know we were a lot weaker late last night versus where we're sitting at right now.
Well, last night the market opened down about 20 points where we are right now. Then we sold off to about down 50, sat there pretty much most of the night, rallied a little bit into Europe. Europe was down overnight, and other than the DAX, has flipped to positive across Europe. Um, Nikkei finished slightly higher. So I think these markets bounced. The trade I'm annoyed with is oil. I think I really wanted to buy it. I mean, it's not too late to buy it. It's just, you have the meeting on Thursday. So really no crazy move unless they cancel that meeting is going to happen until Thursday. But I mean, I don't know. I mean, other than Trump being the biggest Taco Bell ever in the history of the world. Okay. Other than that being the case, that the guy can't follow through, they're just jerking around and wasting time. Their PM said they have the right to enrich uranium, and they're going to do it. And I don't know. Listening to that would let me believe you shouldn't be meeting with these clowns. Okay, they're not serious. So in my mind, Iran should have no nuclear capacity in any way to make anything. And that is a non starter. Okay. We've been jerking around with these clowns for however long. And I just can't believe, that we're waiting till Thursday while they're moving all their enriched uranium to other sites and everything else. And here we sit. And it's kind of weird. That's all I would say. It's kind of weird. And I think that good things are not coming out of this meeting on Thursday. And what good things can it be? What are they going to say? We're going to stop? Okay. I mean, and if they say it, why didn't they do it months and years ago? So I don't see a lot of positive. I just don't know where crude goes, off of this. I don't know if it's an $80
I've
number
yeah,
or a
I've I've
$70
always
number.
I've always been very skeptical that they would do anything in terms of taking a military. I know it flies in the face of what they're this huge buildup of military assets in the region, but Trump for all of his campaign and to now has been fixated on getting lower oil prices, and you don't you don't strike Iran, which sits next to the Strait of Hormuz by if you want lower oil prices, like how I don't
But
know.
Clint, if you remember last summer when we struck them, oil spiked up, and then all of a sudden, Saudi instantly said they were going to produce more oil. His buddy MBS. So I think if they do strike, there's going to be a massive output coming from that region because just to stabilize the prices. So again, I don't know if it will stabilize the prices, but that's what I'm thinking is, going to happen. So I don't think he's that worried. And I don't think it's a long event that's going to be, a year. This isn't going to be a 6 month situation. This should be, less than 3 days and then taking out all of their nuclear capacity once and for all. And basically, I mean, I think you have to go in some way so that you could see what's going on. So maybe you have to go in, but I don't know. I mean, I just don't know what we're waiting for, but it should be absolutely interesting to see what's going to happen there. And looking at bond prices are basically hugging 405. Off a strike, they probably go below 4. On a natural level, it's going to be hard in this area to do that. Gold and silver up significantly off the low, probably higher than 50% back from where they were, especially gold. Um, Euro back in the 117 handle, which is interesting. Dollar's been a little bit strong, and we
Last week you were looking to get long the euro at 116. Is that still a level you'd watch for there?
yeah, I mean, I think so, unless something dramatically changes. I don't think it's going to trade in there. We may have to be a little bit more aggressive in here and pick it up in the low 117s, but we'll assess that when that happens. Um, I think like there's a lot of stuff out there right now. I am, I'm looking. It's funny. Ether was down almost 10%. Ethereum, which I don't trade, but I was thinking about maybe looking at it. It's almost positive on the day. XRP turned positive. I think you may have some interesting move here. It's just
How would you trade Ethereum?
I don't know. We'd have to. I trade it through you when you give me the ETF. That's
Let's
best
say
to
I didn't
trade
know
it.
if you, I didn't know if you looked at the ETF or if you ever traded it through another
No,
way.
I have not traded it. I've traded IBIT a ton. Um, like that name, easy to trade. You can get size on. It's only 38. Now it's 37 and change. You can get some size on. But we're sitting at interesting levels.
I'm gonna pull up a chart really quick. You'd mentioned bonds a second ago. I just want to pull up and look at the chart with the TLT, kind of what we've been tracking. So TLT tracks the it's a 20-year plus treasury. So this is going to track price. So it's going to move inverse to what interest rates are doing. It's just this is a really long pattern. I mean, this low goes back to 2023. And so you can see, this upward sloping trend line, but really this 85 level is key on the downside. And we had this rally off of it, but now we're coming back to this downtrend line. I think this is it's been a really interesting spot to look at TLT for a potential short, which would correspond to rising bond yields.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm a no trade in bonds right now. Um, I actually think they may go below four off of some kind of geopolitical situation. Um, but they don't have a lot to go, and I think the Fed is making a mistake here. Like I think Waller, for coming out the way he did today, is a mistake. Okay, I don't know. Can you explain to me, like, how do you not know? If you don't know, shut your mouth. I mean, oh, we may raise and we may ease and we may go to neutral. Like, I mean, come on, you sound ridiculous. I mean, why don't you just say where the data's been very sketchy? It's been released during a government shutdown, okay? And we're not exactly sure how true this data is, so we're going to keep our eye on it. And right now, we're going to stay neutral until we get a better read. Why does he have to come out like that this morning? Ridiculous. I
Which
mean, I
by the
listen.
way, I'm always amazed that they put so much weight into payrolls numbers, just because it's such a lagging indicator that's then subject to huge revisions. I mean, what are you supposed to make of the January payrolls report? Because I think it came in, what, it was like 130,000. It beat expectations, but then the revisions that they made to 2025 were massive. Like the job market barely averaged any growth during 2025. Um, Again, I don't know. I just always find it comical that these guys put so much weight into these numbers that months after they come out are subject to these massive revisions. Oh, we think we created 130,000 jobs, and then all of a sudden it gets wiped off the board.
I know. I mean, listen, that's the government. Though that's what's going on. I mean, they really can't. Uh, they really can't tell. The data is very erratic. It's being released late. I mean, it's crazy. They shut down over the weekend TSA pre-check and basically expedited lines because they had no money to pay the guys. I mean, it's just it's bizarre what's going on. So we have to just we have to just sit and wait and see how it all parses out. How the Fed is making determinations or whatever they're doing off of this stuff is very sketchy. So,
I think
you know,
my opinion. I think the Fed's going to have a huge problem on the inflation side. When you start looking a couple months ahead, especially if we get the move in oil, kind of like you're expecting. Oil is such a big component of the broader commodity indexes, and those indexes have been pushing higher recently. And I think where the Fed's going to have a huge problem is on the inflation side. I think headline inflation could come back if you see commodities continue to rally. It's not just oil. I mean, you look at what's happened in copper and some of these other base metals. But then didn't receive a lot of attention last week. But we had the PCE, which is it's the Fed's preferred inflation measure, come out. That core number was at 3% year over year, which it's been slowly ticking higher since the middle of 2025, I think, and is still well above the Fed's 2% target. But one thing I would watch. I see if I can share one more chart on here. I think it's really interesting that we talked about rotation at the start of the podcast. Well, energy has been one sector so energy stocks have been performing really well lately, and I think like 100% of the stocks in the S&P's energy sector are above their 50-day moving average. And why is it notable when energy is doing well? And I'll see if I can share this chart really quick.
well,
Yeah,
before you get to that for just one split second, like I'm looking at my Bloomberg, and it's funny because oil is up Brent's up almost 20% for the year. Okay, which has got to be a little inflationary, right? You're not going to have $2 gas prices. Gold and silver, which is interesting, are both up 20% for the year. Pretty much everything is up for the year again in commodities, and it seems really strange. But anyway, go ahead.
I know. I agree, but I think it's going to feed through to inflation. What I would watch with energy sector stocks is what this chart does is it plots sectors within the S&P 500 that do well when inflation is high and rising. So, performance relative to inflation, and then the percent of time down here that the sector tends to have a positive return. And look at energy. Like energy is the standout in terms of both its gain and the percent of time it's positive when you have high and rising inflation. And I'm bringing this up because of the move you're seeing in energy stocks right now. It just, to me, like everything you're seeing in commodities with the energy sector trade, it's all screaming inflation is going to be a problem in the months ahead. And now all of a sudden you're seeing the Fed kind of come to this realization, and they're making this hawkish pivot. And I think what a lot of traders, investors are missing is I think that's a big catalyst weighing on these Mag 7 names and why you're seeing this rotation, so to speak.
All right. Yeah. I mean, listen, I can't really figure it out. I mean, I come in, I get some type of mindset basis what I'm seeing across the board. Um, and then, I look to make trades off it, but really it's very, very difficult. Like the one trade, I'm annoyed with oil today because I really wanted that one, but that's gone for the moment. It's $67 a barrel. It was down probably about $1.50 from here last night off the news that they were having a meeting. The meeting is a fraud. I'm just letting you know. There is a meeting, and Trump's going to say they made the greatest deal of all time because he probably doesn't want to strike them, but they ain't making a deal. No chance. No chance. No chance. Why are we? The best part about it's actually angering. Why are we here? I mean, we've been dealing with these guys for so long on this nuclear capacity that it's just insane, and they've been enriching uranium for the last 10 years. I mean, literally. I mean, we need to shut it down. So hopefully we do the right thing. Um, Hopefully it's not long, which I don't believe it possibly could be. And I wouldn't even mind if they took the guys out that are in power there because the poor people are dying all over the place. And Trump said he was going to take care of them. Said, we got your back. Well, I guess we don't have their back, but you got to do it Mexican style, like the way the cartel does it. I don't know if you caught that this week.
I did, yeah. What happened there? Like there was a military operation with assistance by the U.S. and they retaliated. But
No, so what happened was they killed the leader of that very violent gang that's drug cartel, and basically they took, and it's scary because all of my kids have been to that city in Mexico on like spring break. Like there were kids all over there. There's a lot of U.S. people. And basically, they took over the streets. They were killing civilians in the street, and then they went into the airport and they like took it over. So I mean, that's Marshall. That's crazy. Okay, so we don't have any of that, thank God. But we got to do something. I mean, we got. Listen, why do we put all those assets there? Like to do what? Scare them? I mean, they're not scared. I can tell you that they're not scared. So we'll keep an eye on that. I think there could be some good oil trading. You know, if the uh, if the action is short and swift, oil may trade down like it did the last time. Trade up and trade down. But if it doesn't go exactly as planned, you might have $80 oil, which isn't the craziest thing, Clint. Think about it. It's like the only commodity over the last 10 years or 15 years that it's gone nowhere, actually has gone down. I mean, I don't remember, I don't know if you can pull a chart, but I
I'm
remember
working on it right
very
now.
vividly um, we, um, oil traded 160 or 150. I'll tell you a funny story, and it wasn't the kid sitting behind me, but basically, I had an era in crude oil trading on trading technologies. We put in to buy 1,000 lot of crude, which is a very big order. And by accident, we put in 10,000 lots. And if you look at the volume, my whole machine went black. It started shaking. Okay. We had, I don't know how many we bought, but we had an error. It was unbelievable when we had our fund. And I mean, I think we lost small on it, but it was insane. I mean, but I remember
What
oil.
year? What year was that?
That's why I wanted you to pull the chart. I think '07 or '06 potentially. It was, I believe it was before the financial crisis, but it might have been right after. But right in that area, I think it was over $100. I don't know if you could pull it,
Yeah, I'm
but
pulling the chart. Yeah, I'll pull the chart really quick. We'll look back then, and then we'll go to what we're watching today. But that's the 2008 peak. This goes back to
Mhm.
2005.
There you go. That's when it was. That was probably me up there with
That's
your
it there.
comments.
All right, I'll flip back to where we're at today. Actually, we've written this up. We've written this up in your e-letter, and this is a theme that we've been writing up in One Ticker Trader as something to keep an eye on. But called the mother of all trend lines. I mean, this is oil since late 2023 has come back to test this trend line on a number of occasions, and we're right back at it. Right back at it. So that's this does not have today's price action in it. This is the cash close
Yeah,
from
you're probably
Friday.
on it, but for me, the way I trade, like I don't like that breakout off of potential news. I mean, yeah, you can maybe get something out of it, but I'd rather see, natural action taking us to this level. That's why I don't want to be aggressively buying it, although that may be the right play. Um, I want to wait maybe for a pullback or whatever. I like gold and silver to the short side here for a trade, just for a trade. Um, and I think S&P is going to try their hardest to try to get it positive today because that's what they do. Um, so I would be leery of that, coming off the opening. And really, I'm not seeing. a lot for a snowy Monday in New York. Again, Bitcoin, if you like it, it's very funny to me. I talked with Eric, and I'm happy he's not on right now because he wouldn't give me an opinion on Bitcoin right now because he was bullish the whole ride, and then when it collapsed, he's not bullish anymore. So he's very price oriented. He's like telling me he's like, yeah, I'm gonna buy it when it gets to 69. I'm like, oh, I don't know. I mean, to me, if you think you might be buying it there, why not take a little stab here? And I think it could reverse. I think it's not a bad level. The only thing is on these trades, I have experience, but not the greatest of experience. But probably when this thing starts to go, it goes a lot faster and further than people think, when it's ready. I'm not saying it's ready yet, but again, Clint, think about this. We've spent a month plus, maybe even more, down in the 60,000 level, right? So pretty much, you shook some weaker hands out last night, right? But over the last couple of weeks, anyone that needed to sell or had to sell already sold, right? I mean, they're not going to sit there. The long-term holder is going to basically hold, right? I mean, they're holding whether it goes to 50,000, 40,000, 30,000 until they get the knock on the door or the tap on the shoulder, which we used to get when we were trading, for, spear leads. You'd hate when the guy would come over your shoulder and be like, Larry, listen, you got to liquidate. You're done. So, you don't want that. But I think, a lot of people have puked it out. And again, you're not going to see real lift until we get through, like, last Monday we traded 70,000. So I think that that's the level. But again, I'm not suggesting that today. I'm just suggesting it feels washed out to me. And again, you have to admit, because you work with me, I've traded Bitcoin both sides of the law, or, long and short, but I've never really been bullish at any point. But I'm kind of bullish, only because no one else is, right? All the people you had to listen to for months and months and months, and listening to Eric say he would never sell it no matter where it went, and he didn't want to make 50% on that trade, and now he's unsure about getting long. So those things are good indicators for me that maybe, and I'm just saying maybe, this might be a really good level for trade. I'm just trying to figure out how to structure it correctly for the subscribers and, for, what I'm looking at. So, I'm a little focused on that. I'm focused on gold. I want to short, gold, but I want to do it with a spread with contained risk to the upside. I'm not exactly sure what's changed there. I mean, gold's been an amazing move for the last 3 or 4 years. I mean, it's incredible. Um, so that's gold. Oil we touched on. Silver is, it's the scary guy out in the room. If you want, crazy risk, trade a little silver. And, equities. I mean, maybe the market will be a little quiet today because many people couldn't make it into work. But, now you could trade probably from your house, whoever you are. So it won't be as quiet as it used to be on a snowstormy day. And I'll throw it to you. You can tell me what you're looking at, what you're thinking, and we'll get close to wrap and get everybody ready for today.
Yeah, a couple things I would watch. One, yeah, I like that Bitcoin idea at these levels. But what I would also watch as a corollary to the Bitcoin trade is what's happening in software stocks. Again, if you pull up and just overlay a chart of Bitcoin with the ticker IGV, that's a software sector ETF. They have been highly correlated over the last couple of years, and IGV. There's names like Palantir, Microsoft, Salesforce. I mean, those are the type of stocks that you're going to find in IGV. And those
What is
things,
the symbol? What is the
Uh,
symbol?
IGV.
Oh, IGV.
Yeah, here I'll pull it up really
I,
quick.
yeah, I've seen that.
But I mean, it's just gotten absolutely pummeled over the past month, along with Bitcoin. We'd actually, I think it was last week, we wrote up this setup in the e-letter. But here, I'll share the chart really quick. Here we go. This is just there's two, very similar to Bitcoin. Is that you're hitting these extremely oversold levels. I mean, just look at how stretched below the 50-day moving average prices right now. And just like Bitcoin's coming up to that 60,000 levels key from the last couple of years, this $80 level in IGV has been tested. I mean, this goes back to 2024, has been
What are the
tested.
names? What are the big names, the weighted names in this index?
I'm not sure, I can't recall the top weightings off the top of my head, but I know like Microsoft, Palantir, Salesforce. There's a lot of software as a service stocks that are in this thing. But I
Can you
mean,
pull it, Thomas? Hold on, we'll get it. No, I'm interested. I mean, this chart's right up my alley.
yeah, yeah. Well, I
Right
mean,
up my alley.
look at these two legs lower in the last, since the start of the year. I mean, this is exactly how Bitcoin traded. Exactly how Bitcoin traded. So, I would kind of watch
Well,
those two charts together.
let's look at that. Okay, so I'm looking at that. That's down about 20% for the year, and IBIT is down 20% for the year, pretty much. Actually, it's down more. It's down 22. Yeah, so it's correlating pretty well.
Yeah. So that, this week, I mean, those are near term Bitcoin and this IGV is the two that I would keep a close eye on. And then the last one I would throw out there, just because I think it's overlooked. Not a lot of people are focusing on it right now, but is that TLT trade. Just I think it's interesting that TLTs come back to the trendline resistance. So again, that would correlate to rates rising some from here. But I would keep an eye on that trend line on TLT.
Okay. I mean, I like this IGV. I'm really looking at it. But like you said, it's kind of like the Bitcoin trade. So is this better than the Bitcoin trade? Is this going to make the Bitcoin trade move faster? I mean, they have decimated this thing. I mean,
Yep.
I guess the biggest weighting is Microsoft, then Palantir. I think is that the weighting?
Yeah, Palantir 8.5,
Oracle, the regular subjects that are destroyed. Um, so, I mean, I don't know. I mean, Microsoft, obviously is software. Microsoft does, I mean, they're in everything. I
Right.
mean, everything, but the stock looks horrendous. Listen, I'll tell you a quick 2-second story. So I think it was 2 quarters ago, the stock made an all-time high at like 600 or five something after earnings. Maybe it was 650. I got to look, but it was a high number. And we happened to be shorted. And then by the next morning, it was down like 150 points that day. It was pretty crazy. And it hasn't honestly upticked since. The only thing that scares me about that IGV is like Palantir is $130. Okay. It's overvalued probably by 50%. That's the problem. Okay. I mean, this stock should not be more than a $60, $70 name. I'm very familiar with it. We bought it for under $2. Okay. So I'm not saying it's not worth whatever, but this thing has been hyped. The CEO, Alex Karp, is definitely off the reservation and does not care about shareholders. I mean, the memers think that he does, but I don't think he does. And, you know, basically, it's going to be hard for that stuff to rally potentially. But it's weird. Like when we got on the podcast, the S&P was down like 30. Now it's cut that in half. It's weird. For whatever reason, it feels like we want to rally today, and I don't really know why, to be honest. And, we rallied on Friday, so maybe, this continues, from these levels. But, we're about 9:15. I mean, we could keep going, but I want to kind of give people time to get ready for the open. Again, we're keeping an eye on oil. We I like this IGV and Bitcoin, although it's the same trade, I guess, that you're saying. And Bitcoin's down a couple, so keep an eye on that. Listen, how come no one wants to get long at 65,000? That's the thing I don't understand, Clint. It's my favorite saying. Buyers live higher and sellers live lower. And the guy that, goes back and forth with you on the podcast, Eric, he's so like he only wants to buy things that are high. So he's not looking at it here. I like it kind of here. I like oil here. I think if you can buy a pullback today, that could be interesting. We're going to look for our LSP product, our spread S&P trader, which has been, knock on wood, doing really, really well. We've been very, very particular on when we're trading it. May look for a trade there, but we want to see how everything is pricing up today.
Yeah, I agree with most of that. I definitely like that. Looking at Bitcoin again, watch IGV as it's correlated, but then the one I would stick my neck out on a little bit is with TLT this week. So we'll see if some of these all these events that are lined up for the week we can get a good move in bond prices, but that's kind of an under the radar thing I'd be keeping an eye on.
Where do you think it's going? Where do you
I
think
think we're just going to
TLT is going?
reject. I think ultimately, I think inflation's coming, and you're going to see a sell off in bonds. And I think you've seen kind of the warning shot that these moves can happen has been coming in from markets like Japan and Germany. I'm not saying you're going to get a spike higher like we've seen in Japanese government bond yields, but I think that's showing you an example of what can happen. And I think the macro backdrop is there to support a big breakout in yields and to drive TLT lower. So that's why I want to watch it off that trend line.
Okay. You know what? I like that idea. The only thing that could throw a wrench into it is geopolitical. Also, like you said when we started, and we're going to end with this, probably be a little bit slower than generally usual. Obviously because of weather, one, which shouldn't be that distracting, but a little bit. And then tomorrow night, which we haven't touched on, which I want to touch on tomorrow, is the State of the Union, and what is going to go on in that room is going to be insane. And Trump flip flopping. He's going to put 50 tariffs on 20. He doesn't even know what he's doing. He's just out of control. I was watching some stuff over the weekend, and they're like, he got wiped out. Like, this was a major defeat for him, even though he said he won. That's how he does it. So, I think we got State of the Union, big, right? And then on Wednesday, we have the cheerleader putting on his red pom-pom suit, Jensen Huang, telling you how amazing Nvidia is doing, which is coming, but it'll be the reaction, I think, to the spend and whatever. And I would just say this. It's actually amazing, and it reminds me of the 90s with Micron. Micron was the hottest thing ever. It was a one-trick pony. I mean, I'm not saying this is a one-trick pony, but it doesn't have a lot of tricks in it. I mean, if there's a slowdown in chips or data centers or whatever, this company is going to get just smoked. Okay, and people are buying this like it's an annuity, like they're buying like Ma Bell back in the 70s. Giving a guarantee that you're going to make the dividend. So I think there may be some danger there, but a lot to talk about later in the week. We got, we'll be on tomorrow talking about State of the Union, and then we're on to, Wednesday night Nvidia. So again, I think we touched on every market, and we'll be back to everyone tomorrow with an update on today's trading, and hopefully keep an eye on your inbox. We'll be doing some stuff today. Clint, I appreciate you joining me, and I wish everyone a great trading day. Peace. Enjoy.